Welcome to Geek Zone Wrestling, show by wrestling fans who just want to talk about wrestling. I'm Kyle.
I'm Danny.
Yep, that's pretty much covers it. So today, because in the current WWE world, they are doing the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, we thought that we would discuss gimmick events and like King of the Ring, Elimination Chamber, Hell in a Cell, TLC, Extreme Rules, the ones that have been show headliners, like actual pay per views, but whether or not we think that there should be pay per views or whether or not they'd be better as just matches.
Yeah, so there have been a lot of gimmick matches over the years, and I think it's kind of important to step back and think about, did it work? Why did it work? And does it deserve its own pay-per-view? Because I mean, there's so many gimmicky matches out there that I've seen. I mean, you had like the Triple Tower of Doom in the NWA, which was the three layer steel cage. I think they called it something else in WWE.
Well, in WWE, they had a three stages of hell match, which was just three different types of matches. I believe it was Stone Cold and Triple H.
Well, in NWA they literally had a cage on top of a cage on top of a cage, and it had different levels to it, and they'd fight all the way up and back down, and it was an interesting gimmick. It was brought in by I think it was Kevin Sullivan, and it was just crazy to watch as a kid. I don't know how viable it would be in this day and age, but it was fun back then. Uh, and then I've seen
And
scaffold matches.
in this day and age, I don't think they need that.
Yeah, I don't think they need it per se, but is it something that could add some depth to a rivalry?
I mean, I think they kind of did well enough alone with War Games in that aspect.
Agreed, agreed. I think War Games was a really, really well thought out plan. I like how they pulled it off. And I remember War Games of old, back in the day, and it was insane to watch something like that.
So, starting with King and Queen of the
Yes.
Ring, since that's what's going on right now, in the past, King of the Ring has done wonders for people's careers. Bret Hart is a winner, Owen Hart is a winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin is a very famous winner
Yes.
because, well, for one, curtain call, so Triple H got postponed, but Austin 316 and, Stone Cold, you know, that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
Yeah, that whole thing came out of that King of the Ring, and
And his career took off. Triple H, he won and he ended up becoming the King of Kings. You know, their careers were already well established. They were solid guys, but it, really strengthened their careers.
yeah, it was almost a launching platform for
Sort
him.
of like winning the Royal Rumble, it could really set you on a really high career trajectory. But other guys have won and it didn't really do anything for them,
Yeah, it
especially in
changed
recent
nothing.
years.
Yeah,
With the exception of King Booker, ever since everything after King Booker, I don't think it really affected anybody's career path.
not really.
I mean, Sheamus probably had the best,
Of
but
recent days, yeah.
he kind of just kept going where he was. Baron Corbin, it didn't do anything for him. In fact, they had him lose his crown to Shinsuke Nakamura, uh, Xavier Woods. Now, Queen Zelina, as queen, that did help her career, but Queen of the Ring is not nearly as established as King of the Ring.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I hate to even go this route, but like Queen of the Ring just doesn't have the same oomph. It doesn't have the same measure as the King of the Ring.
I mean, I'm sure that they probably look at it as they don't want people to claim that they are like neglecting the women.
Yeah,
But I think the women's Royal Rumble is much more important than doing a Queen of the Ring.
I agree. I agree. I don't think they need the Queen of the Ring thing, and I don't know. It doesn't.
Now, maybe if they did it like every other year, this year was King, next year was Queen, then Queen, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
Well, see, I feel like they need to do this every year. I really do. If
Which they used to do.
right, and back in the day, being King of the Ring meant something.
Like I said, the Hart brothers, Tito Santana, Macho Man Randy Savage, he became the Macho King.
Right.
Um, Don Morocco was the first one. You had Harley Race. Um, Kurt Angle won it. Edge won it. Really going to avoid who won the 2002 one.
But I mean, back in the day, King of the Ring used to mean something. It was a distinguished title.
Yet they gave it to Mabel.
Yeah, I that at that point it started to
I'm
kind of veer off the tracks.
well, yeah, he was too heavy. The crown gave way, or throne.
But the King of the Ring, to me, should be the best of the best.
I kind of feel like the King of the Ring. After WrestleMania season is over, you don't have the Royal Rumble winner anymore. So I feel like whoever wins King of the Ring should kind of have a push going into SummerSlam. It should be like the summer's Royal Rumble winner.
So, like giving them a world championship match.
Not necessarily, but at least whoever wins King of the Ring is going to be like a big part of SummerSlam, even if it's not necessarily the world title. Because I don't want it to be just like the Royal Rumble, but at least give them a shot to go to SummerSlam and put on a good match.
Well,
Maybe give them like an Intercontinental or United States title shot, if not the world title.
well, see, here's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if you want the king and queen thing to be viable, to make it worth something, A, it needs to be done every year, and B, there needs to be something big that comes out of it. And the only thing that really would would emulate being that
Okay, well,
big
what if,
is
uh,
getting a title shot.
or what if whoever wins King or Queen of the Ring will be the captain of their brand's Survivor Series that year? I mean, it's still not. My
It's
problem is
still not great.
I don't want them to do everything where it's like the winner gets a title shot.
Yeah,
I mean, if it was like King of the Ring, like with the Royal Rumble, you get a title shot at any title at WrestleMania. And being able to choose which world title you go to at WrestleMania could be the Royal Rumble thing. And then the King of the Ring, whoever wins, you just go for the world
on
title
your
on your
show.
brand.
Yeah.
So that way it's still a little different.
But
And
it gives a purpose to it. Like it absolutely could suck to go through that whole event, win King of the Ring, and be stuck in mid card.
like Xavier Woods.
Exactly.
And then you could have it like say it's 8 guys from SmackDown, 8 guys from Raw. You have it. The final match is one person from Raw, one person from SmackDown.
And whoever wins goes for their title.
And then like maybe I don't want to say necessarily what pay-per-view it should be, but instead of having King of the Ring be a pay-per-view, just the final happens at a pay-per-view.
Well, and that's what they're doing this
It like
time.
SummerSlam.
And that's what they're doing this time on the King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring pay-per-view. But I'll be honest, I would prefer to see a singular pay-per-view of the entire King of the Ring bracket.
No, I'm just saying if you're not going to do the entire bracket,
Oh yeah, okay.
then
But
just have the final be at a different pay per view. I feel like it's stupid having a pay per view being King of the Ring, but all it does is crown one
right,
because only one match
has
affected.
anything to do with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like the King of the Ring for me should be one entire pay-per-view, and it should hold everything. If there's too many matches, then do the preliminaries the week before, and then do the rest of them on the pay-per-view.
yeah. Do like the semifinals and finals.
Yeah, it means that they end up doing, whoever advances does 2, 3, 4 matches.
But honestly, I think that would elevate the winner even more if
Right,
they survived all those matches in one night.
right.
It's like they always talk about how like the hour-long Iron Man match
Yeah,
was such a big deal because it had never been done before. Okay, well, screw the Iron Man match. That dude won 3 matches in one night to become the new King of the Ring.
right.
It meant something.
And then put that whole thing behind it of you go up against the world champion for your brand. I mean, that gives purpose to the King of the Ring. Otherwise, it's just a pointless storyline just to get people to do something.
And like some people, like the aforementioned, you know, former champions of the '90s, are synonymous with King of the Ring. But then you got guys like Mabel, Billy Gunn, William Regal. It, when you say King of the Ring, you don't think those guys.
Xavier
Now,
Woods.
the funny thing is, well, he's the most recent, so people might think him.
I wouldn't.
William Regal, I don't know, kind of fits. Maybe because he always had like the
He has the
upper
English,
class
yeah,
English gentleman, and his last name is Regal.
right.
So King Regal kind of, I don't know, fit for me.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, but he
But
was never that caliber of
no,
fighter.
and like even Ken Shamrock, like I didn't see the King thing working for him.
No, definitely not.
And you got Jerry Lawler, who was the King,
Yeah, yeah.
and
And King Harley Race.
yeah, well,
Those were
and
the days when it
Harley
meant
Race
something.
was the second.
Well, and Harley
Uh,
Race
uh,
was considered King Harley Race long before that.
well, this is just since it was in WWE.
Right.
I'm
And
not
he
I'm not
was,
talking before
yeah, he was
WWE.
like in AWA and NWA, and he was King Harley Race.
Um, I feel like we kind of covered everything for King of the Ring, but there is a sort of other elimination style in the Elimination Chamber.
Yes, yes, there is.
And that I do believe deserves its own pay per view. And I think that's what makes it special. It's the fact that it happens once a year. You have men and women go into the chamber. Usually it will be for the championship, but sometimes it will make the champion for WrestleMania, who is not being challenged by the Royal Rumble winner.
Yeah, yeah, this is true. I rather enjoy the Elimination Chamber. I thought that was brilliant. I like everything about the chamber. I've loved all of the matches in it, with exception of some of the women's matches. They didn't hold up.
Well, I didn't like the first one with being for the women's tag team.
Yeah.
I thought that was just too much going on. I like it better when there's just one person in each of the 4 pods,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got 2 people in the ring.
Right.
And funny enough, this goes back to Shawn Michaels.
When he made his return.
Yeah, it was in the Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it
And
was
won it.
just, yeah. And it was just, I don't know, it was something special. I mean, the fact that it was him coming coming back from his being out with his back, and he was in this match, and it was brutal, but it was just entertaining as hell
Mm-hmm.
because it was so new.
It was, and it had so many different dimensions to it
Well,
because
yeah, because you had like vertical, you had diagonal, you had left, right.
not those dimensions, dimwit. The dimensions of all those different fighters, the ones in the pods, the ones that started the match.
I feel like it's basically an upgraded Armageddon Hell in a Cell.
Yes, yes, very much so.
But in Armageddon Hell in a Cell, you had all 6 guys at once. It's just really difficult to powerbomb Rikishi into a trailer full of hay when you're in this elimination chamber.
Granted, but I mean, and this is another off the cuff idea. But do you think that when they name a PLE after a particular style match, do you think that every match in it should be that?
I do not, but like in the case of Elimination Chamber, the two matches revolving around the world titles, yes, Elimination Chamber. But I don't think that like the United States or Intercontinental need one. But then you have matches like Hell in a Cell or TLC or Extreme Rules where I don't think they should have a pay per view. I think that those matches should be rivalry oriented. Like if you get a rivalry that's, for example, here recently, it was AJ Styles and LA Knight
Yeah,
got into that heated rivalry.
right.
I think it would have been really cool if that match ended up being like a steel cage.
Or Hell in the Cell.
Yeah. Something that was, because I felt like their match at WrestleMania was just not what it could have been. I get it. At WrestleMania, you didn't want to, you wanted them to have a spot, but you didn't want them to be overshadowing, you know,
The main events.
everything else that was going on. But if you did that at, like, say, SummerSlam, you could put it in a cage, in a cell. You could make it Extreme Rules, whatever. And I feel like it would have been far better in that situation than just waiting for the pay per view.
I agree. I agree. I think there are certain matches that just do not need to be their own pay per view. But I disagree with you on the chamber.
You want every match to be an Elimination Chamber, even if it's not for a world title.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I think the Intercontinental, the US, I think all the singles titles do need the Elimination Chamber.
All right, well,
And here's why.
I'm going to counter you on that one. Is it just the Elimination Chamber that you think every match should be, or every premium live event that has a gimmick match? Because Money in the Bank should be every match on the pay per view?
No, just chamber. Just chamber.
Okay.
And the reason why is because that would ultimately give the opportunity to raise somebody up that otherwise might not have been raised up.
Ricochet Kofi.
Yeah, to change the what's the word I'm looking for?
Dynamic.
Yeah, change the dynamic of what's going on. You could put the championship on someone totally unexpected, and
like when Bray Wyatt won it.
Uh-huh. And that brings about a excitement that, hey, maybe anything can happen here.
Plus, that would be, if you did that, you could do a, what's the terminology that they use? When it's basically, you give the championship to this person so that they can lose it to the person that they wanted to have it.
A placeholder.
Like a changeover.
A transition champion.
Yes, that. Like, for example, Gunther had the Intercontinental title, right? You don't want him to lose it to Sami Zayn, so you have him lose it in the Elimination Chamber, because you have like four guys gang up on him, and then he ends up losing it. Whoever won the Elimination Chamber, and then they lose it to Sammy. You could always, you don't have to necessarily have Gunther lose it to someone that you don't want him to, because in that case, it's everything goes.
I like that he lost it to Sammy, and I
That's
like
just,
that he lost it clean to Sammy.
I'm not saying that I didn't. I loved that. I'm saying
If it was the case where they didn't want that,
that's just the first thing that came to my mind in regards to, you had a dominant champion and it went to someone who, they, by all credit to Sami Zayn, he'd been doing a fantastic job, but it didn't seem like they really wanted to push him that hard going into this. His push has been more recently, but it should have been far sooner.
yeah, it should have.
So you were kind of thinking he wasn't going to do it because he should have gotten a push sooner.
Yeah, he should have gotten a push in the bloodline. He made that story.
Well, temporarily.
Yeah, temporarily, but he was the best part of that story when he was in it.
It was starting to get stale, and then they put him in and he revitalized it. And then it was starting to get stale, so they had, him be like, you know what? I gave everything to try to be a part of you, and you guys are just like using me. Screw you.
Yeah,
And
that
then
wasn't very Usi of him.
no. And then he turns and it's rejuvenated.
Yeah.
And then he manages to turn the Usos, and then it's rejuvenated. And then Jimmy turns again, and then it's rejuvenated.
I thought that was stupid.
I did too, but I'm just saying they've managed to keep it interesting by mixing it up when it's starting to go down. It wasn't always him, but he was like the one that really made that work.
Yeah, he was the one that launched
The
everything.
rejuvenating would have never worked had he not been the first rejuvenator.
Right.
I said that way too many times. It's weird. But okay,
It's rejuvenating to hear you use those kind of words.
like with Logan Paul. As much as I admire his talent, I still can't stand the guy.
No.
But if you don't want him to lose that status that you have him, and to be fair, he is a draw, so I don't really blame them for putting it. I'm glad it was a mid card title.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, at this King of the Ring P.L.E, he's going up against Cody Rhodes, title versus title, I think. At least that's what it sounded like. I don't think he should have been the one to jump in the ring with Cody.
The problem is he's got such natural athleticism.
He does. He
is insanely talented, and I hate that.
But let's be honest.
It makes it even that much harder to hate him as a heel, because it's like heels don't do cool shit.
See, but here's the thing, though. I feel like I could get behind him if he had paid his dues. The thing I hate most about him...
I will give him credit, though. He is, even though they're not making him wrestle full-time, like, he's only put on, like, 2 title defenses since he won the title.
Mm-hmm.
He is putting in the effort to try and be his best. I will give him that. There are a lot of guys who go out there and they don't try.
And I'm totally with you on that.
And I don't want to be praising him.
I'm with you. I'm on the same page here, but I feel like I could get behind him even as this heel character that he is, if he had simply paid his dues. Name anybody else that they would bring in from just being a YouTuber and launch him into title status. He has not paid his dues. There are guys with unbelievable talent that have busted their tail in the wrestling industry for years upon years that come in and they get shafted for this.
Do you not remember WCW?
I don't care about WCW.
David Arquette.
Arquette, that was a joke. Rodman was a joke.
But see,
That whole thing, and that was the downfall of WCW. They started doing those stupid, ridiculous things, and it just stopped being believable. The whole point of
yeah,
those
but the difference
titles,
is Logan Paul has the gift.
he has the gift, he has the talent, but he hasn't put in the time. He hasn't taken
Brock
his
Lesnar.
bumps. Well, Lesnar came from a fighting background. Paul, he has boxed a few times because of his brother. He is a YouTube sensation because he's an idiot on there too. But I mean, what has he really done with the WWE prior to him coming in and starting as a wrestler?
I don't know. His thing with Ricochet was kind of memorable.
Oh, it was. I'm no doubt. But the bottom line, what I'm getting at is he has not worked long enough to have been pushed to the status he's at.
I even I don't remember if it was like on his podcast or just like doing an interview or something, but I believe he even said that. I believe he even said, he wants to, put in the effort that everyone else has
He wants
so
to,
that he
but he
can earn
hasn't
the
yet.
respect. Well, but that might not be him. He may want to go out there and they're like,
Probably.
we gotta get guys that you can actually work with here. Like putting him out there with like say Braun Strowman. I don't know if that would work.
You know what? They could make anything work if they play it right. And that's between Paul and Strowman, you know? If
Well,
if
but
they
the thing is, he has that super athletic capability, which is why he's been with guys like the Miz, the Mysterios, Ricochet, Cody. He's been with guys who can keep up with his athletic ability and do memorable spots.
Oh, I agree. I agree, and they've done that purposefully. But I think in the bigger scheme of things, in order to get a title run, you need to pay your dues, like anybody else.
Santino Morella.
He had another background. He wasn't just out of the crowd like they put it on TV.
No, but what I'm saying is his debut, he won a title.
Yeah, but he was a wrestler before that. He had taken his bumps. He had put in the time. They
Well, he
just
didn't do it
picked
with
him up.
WWE.
No, he didn't do it with WWE, but Paul hasn't done anything with WWE until he joined and
The
started.
WWE.
Yeah, until he got his first match, and he had never done anything else prior.
All right, that's fair.
You know,
So,
these guys that are in the locker room, they've been doing this, as long as they've been employable, and they're getting nothing. But this dude waltzes in and, oh, here's a title.
his thing was all publicity,
It was, it
like
was.
Arquette Rodman.
It was. It
So,
started out as publicity, and then they decided to sign him because of his athleticism, which obviously he has, but he hasn't paid the dues, and I cannot respect that.
um, moving on from wherever we were before we got on Logan Paul to
we,
Money in the Bank.
we were on Elimination Chamber for
Oh,
every title.
okay. Money in the Bank. Do you think that Money in the Bank should be its own pay per view? Or do you think that it should just be like the marquee match of a different pay per view? Because that's a little different from King of the Ring.
Well, being that it has, you know, historically been its own pay per view.
Originally, it was at WrestleMania.
Yeah, originally it was at WrestleMania, but I feel like
See, for me, I kind of feel like it works as a pay per view because the marquee match being the Money in the Bank. I think mostly you can open with one and close with the other. You have the contracts. Each person has a contract to cash in whenever, and they have until the next Money in the Bank pay-per-view to use it.
Right.
Otherwise you have to try and remember, well, what was the pay-per-view that was at last year, and when did they win that? When did they have?
Yeah. Unless they just said you have until WrestleMania, in which case it wouldn't matter. But then you would have to hold it early in the year.
Yeah. Well, actually, pretty much like right after WrestleMania. Otherwise,
Right. And that would kind of axe some of the other shows unless they just replace the timelines.
and plus, then if you only had until WrestleMania, you couldn't have WrestleMania cash-ins, and that's how you got Priest. That's how you got Rollins's
Well, no,
first.
you could have it at WrestleMania, but you have to cash it in by WrestleMania,
So when WrestleMania
by the
ends,
end of
you
WrestleMania.
know, if you have not cashed it in by the Raw after WrestleMania, you lose it.
Yeah.
Could work, and then you could do it in say May or April or May or June,
Well, I heard rumor that they're talking about possibly moving
because
Mania to May.
or back to March, because they don't want to end up competing with March Madness again,
Right.
which of course starts at the end of March and goes into the early part of April.
And it sounded like they're going to push it to May, or at least recently.
Well, the reason they were thinking about that is just because they've been doing it in a lot of open stadiums, like without roofs.
Mm-hmm.
So why go to a month where you have less dependable weather?
Right.
I mean, May you have options for rain and all that, but March cold.
Yeah.
Like,
March cold and rain.
it's
And maybe snow.
it's one of those things where May will at least be warmer,
Yeah.
and they probably can do, like, if it's supposed to rain, they could probably do something like have like a tarp or whatever that they could.
Or
I don't
or
know.
specifically pick stadiums that have those retractable
Yeah.
domes.
Actually, there has been talk in the sports world of having all of them need that for that reason, because so many sports events have been
Rained out.
postponed
Yeah.
or delayed, and it does actually cost the stadiums money,
Right.
because a lot of times they have to refund the tickets. Otherwise, you're going to lose your fans because they're not going to want to go to an event
If they
if it
have to
could
pay for
possibly
it and it
rain.
might not happen. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Um,
But
but I do think that Money in the Bank, even though it's not every match, it is a big enough event to warrant a pay per view.
I you know what? I'm gonna say yeah, I agree with you on this. Money in the Bank, I think it stands strong as a crowd pleaser, or at least it could. I'm
Barring the 2020 debacle, where because of COVID you couldn't have a live show and they had to do it at the performance or headquarters or whatever.
yeah.
Other than that one, they put on a good show almost every year between one of the matches.
See
There's usually some sort of, not exactly a Kofi moment, but something that makes you just go like, "Oh my god."
yeah, some huge spot in the match
Like
that
this past year was when Io Sky handcuffed Bailey and Becky.
in between the rungs of the
Yeah,
ladder.
like something like, "Holy crap, that was super creative."
Yeah.
And then, like back in the early days, you had Shelton Benjamin run up the ladder that was leaning against the ropes and do like a freaking senton onto all the guys down at ringside.
Yep.
You had John Morrison do a moonsault while holding a ladder.
And then you have those spots where you got the ladder from the apron over to the barrier, and then
Yeah,
someone goes through that.
yeah. It's one of those things where you can have, even if you're expecting a moment, it's so much more enjoyable seeing it than just expecting it.
Yeah.
And then you see it and you're just like, oh, it was everything I hoped. Like, when you have the table sitting outside the ring and then Bubba Ray Dudley's climbing up and you're like, all right, he's going to go through it.
Yeah.
And then he goes through it and you're just like, oh my God, I knew it. That was awesome.
So
Not quite as awesome as Edge spearing Jeff Hardy.
off the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah. While
But
Jeff Hardy was hanging there.
okay. TLC. Just with me, just like Hell in a Cell and Extreme Rules, I feel like it should not be a pay-per-view.
I agree.
Okay.
I don't. I don't.
And this from a guy who
I love TLC.
TLC 2, WrestleMania X7, that keeps coming back around because that was the first match I ever saw and was like,
Yeah, I love the TLC matches, but I don't think that should be a PLE. I don't.
honestly, I don't even think that really needs to be a match anymore. Ever since they introduced Extreme Rules, I feel like you can cover that in Extreme Rules, but you don't have the need for just tables, ladders, or chairs.
Well, the thing about the TLC match is you still had to go up that ladder to get the belt.
Okay, fair point.
So that changes it from just Extreme Rules.
Well,
Extreme Rules, you get pinfall, submission, knockout, whatever.
Then fine. Instead of TLC, make it an ELM, Extreme Ladder Match.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could put it that way because I mean, it pretty much is anyways. Because you have the, I mean, if they're gonna when they allowed tables, ladders,
Well, I
and
mean that's the
chairs,
thing.
you can really
TLC,
pull out anything.
you know, TLC was a no holds barred ladder match.
Yeah.
But it's just when you do TLC, it's for some reason you have to have tables, ladders, and chairs. And without it being the Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian, it doesn't have the same feel anymore because they all had the Dudleys had the tables, the Hardys had the ladders, and Edge and Christian had the
ENC.
chairs. Then it was special because it was those guys all coming together in one match.
With what they were known for to begin with.
Yes. Now it's just weapons, which I don't think you need the TLC anymore. It's just a no holds barred match.
I think the TLC is a viable match to still have for people that you know are like high powered, high flyers. You know, you put those really exciting superstars that have that kind of athleticism like Ricochet and Logan Paul and people like them that can really do something with those ladders. And I think that would be an exciting match, but I don't think it needs to be its own PLE.
I don't think the Royal Rumble really needs to be addressed here.
Royal Rumble's one of my favorites.
But I mean, it's like, how are you going to not have that be a pay per view?
Yeah, I think that one's off the table. You have to have that.
That
you
and
have to do it.
That and Survivor Series. They have gimmick matches, but they're two of the big four.
I'll be honest, Survivor Series has pissed me off.
Why?
It has pissed me off severely because back when it started, every match was a Survivor Series match. They had teams of like 5 for every match.
But now they've added war games.
Yeah, they've added war games. But war games needs to be its own thing. Survivor Series is Survivor Series. And Survivor Series should have those survivor matches. The elimination, 5-man teams, and
With Randy Orton in there somewhere. He's become synonymous with them. He's almost always, the last guy.
and they always prop it up as Raw versus SmackDown now. But if you only have one match of that Survivor Series, does it really determine which show's better?
I don't know, man, because some of those SmackDown versus Raw matches have been comical. Do you remember the one where it was It was DX, the Hardy Boys, and I think CM Punk versus Miz and Morrison, Mike Knox. I don't remember who the other two were.
Is this the one where Michael's turned to Triple
Super.
H and he's like, "Who is that?
Yeah.
He's on the other team, right?"
He super kicks Mike Knox and he looks at the ref and he points to Mike Knox and he's like, "Is he in the match?" And the ref says yes. So it's like, "Oh, okay." So he pins the guy and then he goes over to the corner and says, "Who was that?"
Yeah, that's it.
And like, it was Mike Knox. Like, who's Mike Knox? Oh, he's in ECW. So he was on their team. I never expected that. But that was pure comedic gold.
Yeah, that was absolutely wonderful.
And you can do things like that in a Survivor Series match. Even if it's just the one match, you can make that one match memorable.
Yes, you can. But if you were to take that entire pay-per-view and make it that whole Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series style matches, then you could really put it up as a true Raw versus SmackDown, who got the best of who. You know, you put up a counter.
So in other words, sort of like how they used to do bragging rights.
Yeah. You put up a counter, Raw won this one, SmackDown won that one, Raw wins another one that's 2-1.
You just have 5 Survivor Series matches. So that way, no matter what, somebody is going to win.
Right.
And this past Survivor Series, it's very mixed for me.
Okay, explain.
Well, we had the long-awaited return of Randy Orton.
Yes.
To win with the
RKO off the cage.
Oh my God. JD McDonough became JD McDead now. But then it ended with the not so enjoyable return of CM Punk. Now, it has so far worked out all right. I do have to say CM Punk has been amusing.
He has. He's been
back, especially on commentary.
Yeah, when he's on commentary, he's hilarious.
But his promos have been good.
They have.
And I was worried about him coming back and starting crap, which they've said that he has not so far.
Yeah, I was concerned that he was going to come back and start trouble in the locker room like he did before, and try to get retribution for what he felt he didn't get before.
Now, granted, a big part of that, I think, was Vince related, and now that he's gone, that may have helped that situation. Who knows? But I'm just going to say, I'm with you on last year's Survivor Series because of that. Because I felt it trumped Randy Orton coming back. And you know how I feel about Randy Orton?
Yeah, I do. I know he's your dude. And I'll be honest, I have never ever liked Punk. I never have. I like his music. Cult of Personality, great song.
I liked this
But I loved that before I even knew who CM Punk was.
I like this fire.
I've never liked him as a wrestler. I've never liked him as a personality until he got on commentator after his injury now.
I don't know why, but for some reason, if you have a good commentating lineup, it can make the match so much better.
It really can.
Michael Cole and Pat McAfee together is gold. It reminds me of Jerry King, Lawler, and JR.
I wouldn't put them quite on that level yet, but I get what you're saying.
The pairing is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Like JBL and Michael Cole and Taz. I think Michael Cole is a big deal here.
He is. I mean, 26 years and he's missed 2 days.
But he pairs well with people.
He does.
And oh God, what was it? Okay, I remember what it was now. It was recent, and it was Michael Cole and Pat McAfee, and Dominic Mysterio, intervened somehow, and Pat McAfee said that he was like a dude wipe after you wiped.
I saw that.
And I'm just like, Oh wow, I never would have even thought of that. And Cole just starts laughing, and it's just they look like they were having fun, you know. And I think that's a big part of it. When they're having fun, it rubs off,
It does. It does. That's the whole point of a commentator.
and that's the reason I bring this up is because I feel like with these gimmick matches, if you put into it that kind of energy, we as fans will resonate with that, and we will enjoy it because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they used to do that back in the day.
Hmm.
And I feel like nowadays only some of them do. Like was whatever match it was that Brock Lesnar was in it and just came in and tore the cage down and went in and wrecked shit.
Yeah.
Um Logan Paul and AJ Styles interfering in the elimination chamber matches.
Yeah. That should never happen.
Sometimes it it's not as good, but at least you know that they're trying to make it memorable and enjoyable.
Yeah.
I remember Shawn Michaels, I think it was against The Undertaker. He came from underneath the ring,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, building up to try and face The Undertaker. Stuff like that
Yeah. I mean, it's.
stands out in your head.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's a storytelling that does it for me, and that's why I think I don't really care one iota about AEW. It's because there's very, very little storytelling. Great skills in the ring, but not much to follow.
The one thing I will give AEW credit for that I feel that WWE is not doing well is they give a little more freedom on the mic. I don't now that might change under Triple H. I don't know. But the very scripted promos that the majority of the guys had to do, a lot of times you could tell that they weren't feeling what they were saying.
Yeah, I agree
So,
with that, but there's so little of that on AEW that it kind of just
oh no, I'm not.
disappears.
I'm not saying that I'm pro AEW over WWE by any
Oh yeah,
stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying I wish that there was more freedom in the WWE with the characters, like Dean Ambrose. Like the reason that Moxley had so much problem with Dean Ambrose was because he had like no creative input at all.
and he had no personality
I,
for that character, anyways.
well, he had character in certain situations, like his rivalry with Seth Rollins. I thought was hilarious. His rivalry with AJ Styles, I thought was hilarious. He was more physical comedy than anything. But play on that. Play on what he's good at and work with him and be like, hey, all right, we want you to be, amusing. How can we work with you so that we all benefit? But it was always, this is what we want, this is what you're going to do. We don't care about you.
Yeah,
And I feel like if you did that with all your talent, they would go out there and they would feel like, they have input. And then they're going to be into it more. And then they're working with the guys, they're excited about the match. They go out there and they're happy. They put on a good match. I think that's one of the reasons that this main event of WrestleMania was so good. All the guys were into it.
yeah, this is true.
Roman was happy because he had this planned to try and really put Cody over. And that's why when he's getting pinned, you can see him smiling because this whole thing that he had kind of worked for was finally paying off.
Visibly smiling.
you know,
It was noticeable.
and you had I thought it was really clever the way they did it with having, first it was just the two of them, and then Jimmy comes out, and then Jay comes out, and then Solo comes out, and then Cena comes out, and then Rock comes out, and then Undertaker. What? Boom, boom. What the hell just happened? Holy shit. They were into it, got us into it.
Yeah.
And with gimmick matches, I think that is exactly what is needed. You need the guys to want the match to be electric. They want to be in the match, not because they're told, hey, you're going to do it, but because they think that they can make it the best.
And they think they can make a good story with it.
Yes.
So let's get to Hell in a Cell. You said you didn't think that that needed to be a pay-per-view.
No.
Why not?
Because I feel like having a pay-per-view, you're doing a Hell in a Cell because you feel obligated to do a Hell in a Cell. Not because it's, hey, I want to beat the shit out of you. I don't want you to be able to get away.
So here's the question then. Does that not fall onto the wrestlers in the current storyline to get it to that point?
That's not on the wrestlers. That's on the writers.
Well, I mean, clearly it's on the creative team,
Like the
but
wrestlers, they're if that's the goal and they know that from the beginning, then you have guys like one of the rivalries that stands out in my head was Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. And Samoa Joe, like, oh, don't worry, I'll be your daddy now. It put that heat, but that worked because Samoa Joe and AJ Styles have known each other for a very long time, and they worked well together because they knew how each other worked.
mm-hmm.
So they had that deep personal rivalry. You're not necessarily going to get that between AJ Styles and LA Knight, but you're not guaranteed that you won't be able to do it if they know exactly, hey, this is going to culminate in Hell in a Cell. Let's make it so that it's believable that you guys need to be in a Hell in a Cell. Not just, oh, hey, it's coming up. Hey, that rivalry, we'll make them the Hell in a Cell match. And that's what I feel like it is. They'll just take a rivalry and be like, okay, we're going to put them in a Hell in a Cell. Not that the rivalry necessarily needed it, but because they were just a rivalry that was available.
I get that.
Like, this is one of my least favorite matches. Seth Rollins versus The Fiend. Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, that was
Bullshit.
terrible. Absolutely
Absolute
terrible.
bullshit. And I feel like that was done when it shouldn't have been.
I agree. I see now on the other end, I feel like it could have worked if they didn't end it the way they did.
Well, but they just wanted to do that as a way to show that the Fiend was a monster. Okay, you don't need a Hell in a Cell to do that. If you're going to have him be a monster, have it be just like, they're in the match, lights go out, he disappeared. Have it be a mind game kind of match. Not a Hell in a Cell where it's basically just he brutalizes him with weapons, he still gets up, and then they're like, you know what, screw this, disqualification.
Which
Like
is still baffling to me because you can't
was
disqualify in a Hell in a Cell.
well, that was what everybody said. But like I said, it was just I believe that they felt like they had to do a Hell in a Cell match, but they didn't have the match. The match was more of, we have to do one, so we'll just do this. Not, dude, this rivalry, this will be a great ending for this. I feel like that pay-per-view means that you have to have one. Not necessarily that the rivalry needs to have one.
So while we're on gimmick matches, what about the biggest royal or biggest uh
Greatest Royal
yeah,
Rumble.
greatest Royal Rumble ever?
Well, on one hand, I kind of like that, you know, they added more guys to make it, a special event for Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm glad that they didn't do it more than once. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't have so much fun with Titus O'Neil. Like, I just saying, I really, that was a good one off, but it needs to stay a one off.
I agree. I don't think that they need to overdo the Royal Rumble just because it has become a big deal at the beginning of every year.
Also, personally, I don't think it was the greatest Royal Rumble.
No, it wasn't. Much like I feel the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, unnecessary.
Well, I think that's just to give all the people who aren't wrestling in WrestleMania sort of a chance to get in the ring and feel like they have their moment.
I get that, but I don't feel like it's necessary in the grand scheme of things. Yet they give him a big trophy. Okay. Does it really serve any purpose storyline wise?
Well, unless they could always make it, give a storyline.
Well, they could, but they don't. So, I mean, what's the point? The point of battle royals and royal rumbles is usually get a title shot or win the title.
Maybe if they did the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and, the winner of the Royal Rumble got to face the champion of their brand the next night or the next show.
But see, that goes back to the Money in the Bank one.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you're the one who said that you want this stuff to be for a title.
I do. But like in a different manner. Like,
Okay,
the
so
Royal
instead
Rumble
of
gets the Royal Rumble gets to go to any title they want. The Money in the Bank should go to whatever brand they're on.
well, no, I think Money in the Bank,
Or King of the Ring, I mean.
yeah, Money in the Bank can be for anything, but the Andre the Giant battle, if like this past year, Bronson Reed got it. Bronson Reed would then get to, or okay, what if you did it so that that was a mid card?
A
Like,
mid card title?
yeah, like, okay, you won the battle royal, you get to challenge for the mid card on your brand as a consolation prize.
That would give some purpose to it.
Or because it's the beginning of WrestleMania, you get to add yourself to
Ooh,
one of the WrestleMania matches.
I kind of like that. Of course, then it'll always come down to I'm going to add myself to the world title match.
Not necessarily,
Unless they have a rivalry already with one of the other title holders.
but like for example, with Big Bronson Reed, he could go after the Intercontinental.
And that would have put him in there with
He
Sammy and Gunther.
he doesn't necessarily have to go for the world title reign. It all depends on how they qualify it. Like if it's not you don't get to pick, but they give you an option. If it excluding main event,
Hmm.
you can insert yourself into obviously they're going to have more than just United States and Intercontinental, but like they had um,
What about,
Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and Logan Paul, right? So why couldn't it be Gunther, Sami Zayn, and Big Bronson Reed?
well, how about this? What if they took it and said the winner of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal gets an automatic bid in the Royal Rumble?
But the Battle Royal is at WrestleMania,
Right,
which is 2 years, 2 months after the Royal Rumble.
right. They get an automatic bid in the upcoming Rumble.
But that's not necessarily meaning that they will still be there at the Royal Rumble.
Well, that's part of the gig. You got to stay there.
Or, okay, here's the thing: move it,
Oh, wait.
it. Have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal be like before the Royal Rumble. Have it be like on day one, if they do the day one pay per view, and the winner gets the number 30 spot.
That could work. Or what if you did this? What if you took the winner of that Andre the Giant Battle Royal and give them an automatic bid into the Money of the Bank?
That could work. The winner gains entry into the Money in the Bank ladder match.
Yeah. I feel like that would give a purpose to a match that has no purpose.
I think they just, they wanted to honor Andre.
I get that, but I mean, you could do it in so many other ways.
Where's the Yokozuna?
See, I feel like WWE has a bad habit, excuse me, with their big matches, the gimmick matches, in that it never does what it's intended to do.
Put someone over.
Yeah, like there's never any surprises. Aside from Otis, which never came to anything.
That's not true. He ended up losing the contract to Miz, who cashed in on Drew McIntyre at the Elimination Chamber, only to lose it to Bobby Lashley.
So never amounted to anything.
It amounted to Bobby Lashley becoming world champion.
Yeah, not the greatest choice.
I didn't say it was.
At any rate,
Otis is unbelievably comedic. I love that guy.
He is, but I feel like
hilarious.
if they're gonna have a match like that has the opportunity for somebody to get a title shot, it needs to be people that aren't already in the main event arena. And it needs
like how John Cena and Randy Orton have both won Money in the Bank.
Yeah. I mean, every year it comes down to a big name that's already in the main event run, and they could very easily get a world title shot at any given point. I feel like those types of events need to elevate somebody to that status.
And even if they don't win, putting guys like Kofi Kingston or Ricochet or, guys with the kind of talent to put on a show during that, you don't need to win it. You just need to have a moment to shine. Like in the Royal Rumble with Ricochet and Logan Paul. All it took was them doing a crossbody from the other sides of the ring.
Yeah.
Memorable moment. Elevated them both.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They don't need to win the Money in the Bank. But if you give them a situation to shine, let them take it. And just have it be 6 guys. Whoever wins, sure, has an opportunity to try to make himself. Damian Priest. Not in the main event picture until that.
Yeah.
But you have guys who, like Finn Balor, hasn't been in the main event scene for
since he got the Universal title and had to relinquish it.
I mean, he's had a couple matches, but it's basically been he'll have a match, he'll lose, he'll go back to being
mid-card.
Yeah. Guys like him who can do it.
Yeah.
They deserve it. Have 6 guys like that. You have Finn Balor, you have Kofi Kingston, Logan Paul. Guys who have the ability to do amazing things. You put them all in there, Whoever wins, wins, great, but the other ones still have a chance to earn their way up as well.
See, I feel differently. I feel like those are supposed to elevate somebody into main event
No,
status.
I'm just the Money in the Bank elevates them immediately. But with Money in the Bank, the other five have a chance to work towards the other pay-per-views and build their way up, so that when the Money in the Bank wielder, cashes in, he has a crop of new challengers who just made their way to the main event scene.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that is how it should be, but I feel like far too often they always end up with the same few people winning it, and it gets really stale watching the same person going up in the main event. The whole excitement uh, about those titles is that they should be able to change hands at any time
To anyone.
to anyone. And I don't feel like that is necessarily what it's become.
No. I like guys like AJ Styles who can face off against power guys, but also face off against speed guys. Like you put in AJ Styles, he can keep up with who's a good power guy right now.
Strowman?
He could face Strowman, but then he can also go up against Montez Ford.
Yeah.
Like I want guys like Montez Ford, Kofi Kingston, Ricochet, guys who can, jump up and kick you with an enziguri. Main event Jey Uso.
Yeah.
I want those guys because they are fun to watch. And if you have a guy like that against a guy like Braun Strowman will be elevated because with his limited mobility, no offense to him, he cannot do that stuff.
No, he can't.
That's one of the reasons I always loved Rey Mysterio. He could sell Big Show in a way that not many other people could sell Big Show. And he could work with Kurt Angle is a great example of, like, he's, in my opinion, the Ruthless Aggression era's Seth Rollins.
Yeah, he could do
Because
virtually anything.
he could take on the big guys, and he could pretty much do high flying shit, which somehow, I don't know how, but he could make it work. I think we're out of gimmick matches, or at least ones that like pay-per-view gimmick matches.
Yeah, the big time pay-per-view ones. So,
Like the other gimmick matches would be like Buried Alive and Inferno matches and stuff like that.
which don't really make sense without Taker and Kane.
There we go.
But at any rate, where can they find us now?
Everywhere.
Not everywhere yet. You can find us on all podcast arenas, and you can also find us on YouTube now. We have opened up a YouTube page uh, under the same name, Geek Zone Wrestling. So make sure you check that out. We are going to be doing some interesting stuff there as well.
Yeah. We're hoping at some point to start Wrestle Gaming as well.
Yes.